$100,000 deposit. I co-signed for this apartment, so I own it. And I am selling it. My mother screamed this as she threw a crumpled loan contract onto my bed. She did not care that it was the middle of the night. She only cared about my sister, Ellie, who was retching on the pavement outside and needed a getaway car. "Don't be selfish," she spat. "Give me your keys. Now." I looked at the illegal contract. I looked at the woman who had just sold my home to a loan shark. I did not fight. I reached for my heavy winter coat, hanging by the door. I knew the spare key to her brand new $98,000 luxury SUV was zipped inside the lining from when I serviced it last week. I threw the coat at her. "Take the car," I said. "Take the coat, just go." She grabbed the bundle and ran, thinking she had the keys to my old sedan. She had no idea she had just stolen her own prized possession. The silence that followed was heavy, the kind that rings in your ears after a gunshot. I stood in the center of my living room, staring at the empty doorway where my mother had just stood. The air still smelled of her perfume, a cloying floral scent that she wore like armor. I did not go to the window to watch them leave. I did not need to. I knew exactly what was happening. Ellie was stumbling into the driver's seat of the SUV, intoxicated and entitled, believing she had just pulled off another heist. Deborah was likely buckling her into the passenger seat, cooing that everything would be fine, that they had won again. They always thought they won. That was the dynamic, written in stone since the day I was born. In my family, mythology mattered more than truth. I was born in 1992, the same year my father left and the economy crashed. My mother lost her vice president position 3 weeks after her maternity leave ended. She looked at me, a colicky infant in a second-hand crib, and decided I was the bad omen. I was the anchor that dragged her down. Ellie was born 3 years later, on the exact day Deborah won a $70,000 settlement from a minor car accident. Suddenly, the money was flowing, the debts were paid, and the sun was shining. Ellie wasn't just a baby. She was the good luck charm. She was the golden ticket. Growing up, the rules were simple. I was the worker. Ellie was the prize. I was the mule. Ellie was the show pony. I remember the day I turned 18. My grandmother, the only person who ever looked at me with softness, had left me a small velvet box in her will. Inside was a vintage sapphire necklace, delicate and real. It was the first thing of value I had ever owned. I hid it in my sock drawer, terrified to wear it. 2 weeks later, I came home from my shift at the diner to find the box empty. I found the necklace that night. It was draped around Ellie's neck as she preened in front of the hallway mirror, getting ready for a party I wasn't invited to. When I confronted my mother, she didn't even look up from her magazine. "Your sister needs a car for college," she said, her voice bored. "We sold the sapphires to make the down payment. You can take the bus, Aurora. You are the worker. She is the face of this family. She needs to shine." I learned 2 things that day. First, that anything I loved would be cannibalized to feed Ellie's vanity. And second, that in Deborah's mind, I did not have property rights. This is what I call the benefactor's delusion. It is a specific kind of madness found in parents who view their children not as people, but as investments. Deborah believed that because she birthed me, because she fed me, because she signed a permission slip or a loan document once upon a time, she retained feudal ownership over my entire existence. She looked at this apartment, my sanctuary, and she didn't see my name on the deed. She didn't see the 5 years of mortgage payments I had scraped together by skipping meals and working 60-hour weeks. She saw a co-signature she had scribbled on a piece of paper 10 years ago. In her twisted logic, that signature made her the lord of the manor, and me the serf. I was just a steward, keeping the seat warm until she decided to liquidate her asset. She truly believed she had the right to sell the roof over my head at 3 a.m. to pay off a gambling debt. She believed I would just accept it, just like I accepted the loss of the sapphires. But she forgot that the worker sees everything. The worker learns how the machinery operates, and the worker knows exactly which lever to pull to bring the whole factory down. I walked to the window. Down on the street, the taillights of the SUV flared bright red, then peeled away into the darkness. I checked the time on my phone. 3:22 in the morning. I did not call the police. I did not call to warn them that Ellie was too drunk to drive a vehicle with 400 horsepower. I simply watched the red lights fade into the distance, and I waited for the sound of the crash. 3:20 in the morning. I stood at my bedroom window, looking down at the street through the slats of the blinds. The rain had started to fall, a cold drizzle that made the asphalt shine under the streetlights. Down below, the scene was playing out exactly as I had calculated. Ellie was fumbling with the heavy winter coat I had thrown at them. She was shivering, not just from the cold, but from the chemical panic of withdrawal. I watched her hands shake as she dug into the lining. Then, the flash. The amber parking lights of the massive black SUV blazed to life. The vehicle was a beast, a limited edition luxury tank that my mother, Deborah, had bought 3 months ago to celebrate her imaginary status as a real estate mogul. It had 400 horsepower, heated leather seats, and a complex sensor system that Ellie, in her current state, had no hope of navigating. Ellie did not hesitate. She did not check the mirrors. She did not adjust the seat. She climbed in, and the engine roared to life, a deep, guttural growl that vibrated against my window pane. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over the call button. It was a reflex, a phantom limb from a lifetime of fixing their messes. The old me, the me who paid the mortgage and apologized for existing, would have called them. I would have run downstairs in my pajamas, screaming that they were taking the wrong car, that Ellie was too impaired to drive, that they were about to make a mistake that would cost them everything. But I froze. I looked at the phone, and then I looked at the handwritten loan agreement still lying on my bed. The paper that sold my sanctuary for $50,000. This is where I learned the most important lesson of my life. I call it the power of silence. We are taught that love means intervention. We are taught that if you see someone walking off a cliff, you grab them. But what if that person has spent 20 years pushing you toward the edge? What if saving them only gives them the strength to try and destroy you again tomorrow? I realized then that my silence was not passive. It was a weapon. It was a strategic choice. Napoleon once said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake." Deborah and Ellie were in the middle of the biggest mistake of their lives. If I intervened, I would just be the annoying daughter ruining their escape. I would be the villain again. But if I stayed silent, if I let gravity take over, then I wasn't doing anything. I was just the witness. I lowered the phone. I did not dial. I did not run downstairs. I watched the SUV lurch forward. It clipped the neighbor's recycling bin, sending plastic bottles skittering across the wet road. The brake lights flared red, angry and bright, and then the car accelerated. It sped down the block, swerving slightly over the center line, disappearing around the curve at the end of the street. I stood there for a long time, counting the seconds. 1, 2, 3. The sound came about 40 seconds later. It wasn't a loud explosion like in the movies. It was a dull, sickening crunch. The sound of expensive metal folding in on itself. The sound of glass shattering against concrete. It echoed up the quiet street. A final, definitive period at the end of a sentence. Then, silence returned. I did not gasp. I did not call the police. I knew that in a neighborhood like ours, someone else would make that call within minutes. Sirens would be coming. I turned away from the window. I walked back to my bed, picked up the illegal contract my mother had thrown at me, and folded it neatly. I placed it on my nightstand. I climbed back under the covers and closed my eyes. I didn't sleep, of course. The adrenaline was humming in my veins like a live wire, but I lay there, breathing steadily, waiting for the sun to rise on a brand new world, a world where I was no longer the fixer. I was the architect. And the demolition had just begun. The sun rose at 6:14. The light was gray and unforgiving, the kind that exposes every crack in the pavement and every lie told in the dark. My phone buzzed with a notification from the police scanner app I kept for neighborhood alerts. A luxury vehicle had been found abandoned in a drainage ditch 3 miles east. The driver had fled the scene. Hit and run. I poured myself a cup of black coffee and sat down at my desk. It was time to go to work. My mother, Deborah, liked to believe she was a master manipulator, but she had a fatal flaw. She was lazy. She believed that details were beneath her. When she bought that $98,000 SUV, she hadn't bothered to set up the telematics system or the cloud account. She had thrown the manual at me and said, "Fix it." I don't have time for tech support, so I did. I set up the account. I linked it to my email address. I created the password. And because she never asked for it, I never gave it to her. I opened my laptop and logged into the dashboard. The interface loaded instantly. 1 click. And the truth flashed on the screen. I downloaded the interior dashcam footage from the previous night. The video was crisp, high-definition evidence of a felony. On screen, Ellie was slumped in the driver's seat, one hand on the wheel, the other holding a bottle of vodka she must have stolen from Deborah's liquor cabinet. The timestamps matched perfectly. 3:22 a.m. Look at me. Ellie slurred to the empty passenger seat, her eyes glassy. Driving Mom's tank. Aurora is probably crying in her ugly little sedan right now. Who cares if I scratch it? Mom will just buy another one. She took a swig. She laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Then she swerved. The camera shook violently as the car clipped the guardrail, spun, and slammed into the concrete embankment. The airbags deployed in a cloud of white dust. The feed cut to static. Then silence. I saved the file to 3 different hard drives and a cloud server. I named the folder the Boomerang. Deborah thought she was protecting her golden child, She thought she could just hide the car, report it stolen later, and claim the insurance money to pay off the shark. She didn't know that I had a high-definition recording of her favorite daughter committing a DUI and a hit-and-run in her vehicle. But that was just the appetizer. I needed the main course. I walked over to the fireproof safe bolted to the floor of my closet. I spun the dial left, right, left. The heavy steel door swung open. Inside lay a single blue folder. I took it out and laid it on the desk next to the crumpled loan agreement Deborah had thrown at me hours earlier. The contrast was poetic. Deborah's document was a handwritten, illegal mess, scrawled by a desperate woman. My document was a certified quitclaim deed, notarized, stamped, and filed with the county clerk 6 months ago. Back then, I had told Deborah I needed to refinance the mortgage to lower the monthly payments. I told her it would save her money. She didn't read the fine print. She didn't notice that the new terms required the cosigner to be removed from the title to qualify for the better rate. She just signed where I pointed, eager to get back to her brunch, arrogant enough to believe her signature on the original loan gave her eternal ownership regardless of what the new deed said. She was wrong. According to the state of Oregon, Deborah Henderson had zero legal claim to this property. She was not an owner. She was not a landlord. She was a stranger who had just accepted $50,000 for a house she did not own. I ran my hand over the raised seal on the deed. It felt like armor. They had spent 20 years telling me I was worthless. They had treated me like a servant, a bank account, a problem to be solved. They thought I was weak because I stayed silent. They thought I was stupid because I paid the bills. They forgot that the person who pays the bills keeps the receipts. I put the deed in my bag. I put the flash drive with the dashcam footage in my pocket. I finished my coffee. The phone rang. It was Deborah. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Her voice was ice cold, terrifyingly calm. "Come to the insurance adjuster's office downtown," she said. "Now." "Why?" I asked, playing my part. "Because if you don't," she hissed, "I will tell that man you ran away with his $50,000. He breaks legs for a living, Aurora. Be there in 20 minutes. I hung up. I checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked tired, but I looked sharp. I put on my blazer. I wasn't walking into a trap. I was springing one. I drove downtown with the windows down, letting the cold air sharpen my focus. My mother had chosen the location carefully. The insurance adjuster's office was in a glass and steel tower in the financial district. The kind of place designed to make you feel small. It was neutral ground, or so she thought. To her, it was a stage where she would perform her greatest act, the grieving mother cleaning up her daughter's mess. I parked my sedan 3 blocks away. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror one last time. I was not wearing the stained hoodie of a victim. I was wearing my charcoal blazer, a silk blouse, and stilettos that clicked like gunshots on the pavement. I had my hair pulled back tight. I looked like a woman here to close a deal, not confess to a crime. Deborah was waiting for me in the lobby. She looked flawless in her navy. Big escrow suit, hair set, makeup perfect, but her hands kept clenching at her sides. When she saw me, she scanned my outfit. Disappointed. She wanted a broken scapegoat, not an executive. She yanked me into a corner by the elevators and hissed the script. I borrowed the keys for milk, mistook the car in the dark, hit a guardrail, panicked, fled, and I'd pay the deductible. "Why would I confess to a felony?" I asked. "That's insurance fraud." Her smile was all teeth. "If I didn't sign," she said. "A man upstairs, Mr. Vance, the investor who wired her $50,000 last night, would be told I'd run off with his money. He breaks legs for a living," she whispered. "Sign and save yourself." She thought she'd cornered me. She didn't know I'd already disarmed the trap. "Okay," I said. "Let's go upstairs." In the elevator to the 12th floor, she fixed her lipstick like she was about to win. I hugged my iPad to my chest inside my bag, the dashcam footage, and the deed. Room 4B was a glass box with stale, heavy air. Mr. Henderson, the senior claims adjuster, waited at the head of the table, tired in the way men get after hearing every lie. Mr. Vance sat in the corner, watching Deborah like a pending transfer. Ellie lurked in oversized sunglasses, hungover and small. Henderson slid 1 page across the mahogany. Because Ellie was an excluded driver and because of the crash, the claim only worked if the car was taken without consent by a covered family member. He looked at me. "By you." Deborah picked up the pen, suddenly calm, performing martyrdom. "It breaks my heart," she said, voice trembling on cue. "Aurora took the keys, took the car. I didn't know until it was too late." She stared me down. "Sign, or the shark gets you." I stayed silent long enough for her to commit. She signed Deborah Henderson, dated it, and pushed the affidavit back. The trap snapped. Felony insurance fraud, perjury. All for a $98,000 payout. Henderson lifted the paper. And you, Miss Henderson? I do, I said, and set my iPad in the center of the table. My mother is mistaken. I didn't take the car, and neither did she. I pressed play. Ellie's voice blasted from the dashcam drunk, gloating about Mom's tank, sneering that I was probably crying in my ugly little sedan. A bottle clinked. Then the violent swerve, the crunch of impact, and dead silence. I paused it. Henderson's boredom turned into cold focus. Mrs. Henderson. Is that Ellie's voice? The excluded driver? Deborah went ash gray. It's fake, she stammered. Manipulated. It's cloud time-stamped, I said. Uploaded at 3:22 a.m. The exact time of the crash. Henderson picked up his phone. Security. Get the police liaison. We have a Code 3 fraud in progress. Vance stood, chair scraping like a threat. Car's dead. I don't care. I want my deed, Deborah. You said the girl would sign the house over today. Deborah spun to him, frantic. Yes, she has it. I co-signed. I own it. She stabbed a finger at me. Give him the papers, Aurora. I slid a blue folder across the table. Read it. Vance scanned the certified quitclaim deed. Deborah's notarized signature from 6 months ago. Removing herself from title. County stamp confirming Aurora Henderson as sole. 100% owner. He looked up, flat-eyed. She isn't on the title. Deborah froze. What? You quitclaimed it when I refinanced, I said. You didn't read it. You have zero legal claim. I leaned in. You took his $50,000 selling property you don't own. That's theft by deception. That's grand larceny, she whispered, broken. But I co-signed. I'm the mother. The math is simple, I said. No car. No house to sell. And you owe him $50,000 you already spent. Less than 4 minutes later, 2 officers entered. Henderson pointed at Deborah and Ellie and used words like felony fraud, grand larceny, flight risk. Ellie screamed when the cuffs clicked. Her tears bought her nothing but a Miranda warning. Vance didn't run. He leaned into Deborah's ear as she was escorted out. House is gone, he murmured. But you still have kidneys. 24 hours. Deborah twisted toward me. Mask gone. Hatred raw. You did this. You're a curse. Aurora. I felt nothing, just a ledger, finally balanced. I didn't ruin you, I said. I just stopped saving you. Enjoy the retirement you earned. I walked out into the cold morning. My phone buzzed. My attorney confirmed the legitimate sale I'd set up 2 weeks ago had closed wire complete. I got in my sedan, drove north toward Seattle. And for the first time in my life, I owed no one a thing. Have you ever had to be the bad guy just to save yourself? Tell me your story in the comments, and if you believe family is about respect, not blood, hit that like button.